The Overwatch 2 team is wrong in the way that they want to approach the anti-nade issue with Ana, and they've been showcasing problems like this for a lot of abilities within the game, and that's something that I kind of wanted to talk about right away because I feel like there's not enough attention going towards this problem with the balance team kind of just showcasing their philosophy. And while some of it is actually pretty good, there's another layer of it that is really, really bad that I feel like they don't understand. There's two things. Number one, they don't understand what makes an ability strong and oppressive, and why players don't like playing against it and why it feels bad to play against. And finally, number two, they don't understand that hero popularity equals a hero's strength. Yes, in some cases, a hero may become popular during a season with sudden spikes if that hero is strong. However, there are certain characters. For example, in this case, Jeff Kaplan revealed years ago that the most popular characters in Overwatch by far was Genji and Mercy respectively on the same level. Then there was a significant drop in popularity and then came the other heroes beneath them, right? So we need to understand that just because if a certain character is being played, it doesn't necessarily mean that they might be oppressive. Now, if I look at you dead in the eye and ask you, do you think Mercy is meta? No, understand this. Meta means most effective tactic available. And for the longest time, Mercy has not been, quote-unquote, the most effective tactic available when there's been other supports who can do what she does, but much better. And, you know, we all know that Mercy is restricted to the person in front of her and who she's enabling. If that person's kind of garbage, well, then your Mercy pick has become kind of garbage. This is not a Mercy topic video. I'm just trying to talk to you guys about a point. Now, moving over to Genji as well. Genji has always been a byproduct hero that kind of phases in and out of, different states of the game or meta compositions. Fully, he's just complementary to, for example, if this season, let's say, hypothetically, dive is the go-to meta composition that you want to build around, right? So you have options. You can play Tracer, you can play Sombra, you can play Echo, you can play Genji, you can play, etc., etc. Like, you see where I'm going with this, right? Like, these are, Genji just fits in, right? Now, let's say the most effective tactic available for that composition is actually going to be Sombra and Tracer because of the value that they might be able to bring out with EMPs, Tracer being really powerful. Again, like, why would you want Genji when Sombra is just fundamentally, individually, at the moment, the better hero, right? And she brings a little bit more to the table, and she's pretty good against oppressing Mauga, and right now, Sombra has a fantastic matchup against the nerfed Mauga, right? So, my point basically is if, let's say, in this dive meta, Genji sees a bit of a popularity race, it isn't because he's actually overpowered and he needs nerfs, it's just because of the fact that the hero is being complemented. Now we move on to the next topic that, yes, there are some scenarios where, let's say, for example, Ana is not only fun to play, but currently in a 5v5 setting, she is pretty strong. Now, we didn't necessarily see this problem in the earlier seasons in Overwatch because there was an abundance of things that were a little bit out of control. But the more Overwatch 2 has kind of gone on, the more the picture has become clear that, okay, there's a bit of a concern over here. Now, the major concern is the fact that Ana's nade can basically do four things. Let's talk about it for anybody that's not aware, because sometimes I see people, they get shocked. Did you guys know that anytime I've coached an Ana player, they didn't know that if you use a nade on your teammate, they actually get 50% increased healing? They didn't know that. There's a lot of players that I've coached privately off stream or off YouTube. They don't know this, and it's generally a little bit concerning, I'm not gonna lie. But anyways, so Ana's nade does about four things. Number one, when you drop it onto a teammate, they get a burst healing of a certain amount that I cannot remember on top of my head. Then they get another status effect, which is the healing that the target receives from Ana or anybody else for that matter has been increased by 50%. This is incredibly strong already, right? It can do two things. It not only brings the healing up, but it allows for Ana's next shot to be even stronger. This is really effective when used with tanks. For squishies, it's like, okay, there's a situation here and there, and it's AoE. So number 3 is AoE. Number 4, it can also deal damage to the opponent that it hits. And then number 5, it can also shut down that target's healing for a limited amount of time, about 3 to 4 seconds if I'm not mistaken, 3.5. I cannot remember on top of my head. Now, this is a very strong ability, as we can see, right? It's doing a lot of things. Now, if I compare it to a support ability like Resurrect, right? It's just one thing. It just raises the target back up. That's it. If I compare to Lucio's amplification on his speed, it's just, well, I press this button, I speed people up. I suppose it is what it is. Zenyatta tosses a Discord, does one thing, nothing else. So we can kind of see that anti-nade definitely has a little bit of power to it. Now, in Overwatch 1, anti-nade wasn't as oppressive because we had a second body in the lobby who was able to absorb as well as negate the value that anti-nade could have brought. Now, of course, the band-aid solution here is to actually go back to 6v6, which I'm beginning to believe is the right way to go, because actually, you know what? I don't know what to believe, because whether we're in 6v6 or 5v5, these developers have no idea what to do with the game. Excuse me, sorry, I went off track for a second. Back onto the anti-nades thing. So we understand that in the 5v5 setting, a tank design might get limited if we never address anti-nade. Why? Because anytime they design a tank that's a little bit different, let's say Mauga, Junker Queen, where they don't have the traditional shield playstyle or some sort of ability that can absorb cooldowns and negate it, like Zarya's bubbles or something like that, that tank is going to be in a lot of trouble. Why? Because they're immediately at the mercy of both Ana's Sleep Dart and Ana's Nade. Now, Ana's Sleep Dart is something that I don't think anybody has a problem with, simply because it is a skill shot, and against tanks, they did implement some features where the effects of it have been reduced a little bit. So I believe against tanks, the sleep duration is 3 seconds, while against DPS and other squishies, the sleep duration is now 5 seconds. So a Sleep Dart is something that we're all okay with, because it's a relatively straightforward ability. It does this one thing, and that's it. If you land it, good for you, right? But when we come down to the way like the biotic nade works, it's definitely something to talk about. It's very, very strong, right? And these abilities that end up doing a little bit too much for you, sorry if you guys heard my cat in the background, these abilities that end up doing too much for you, they are the ones that end up causing a lot of problems. They're the ones that end up causing a lot of frustration. So how do we take away a little bit of power from them, but still allow them to maintain some identity so the hero can relatively feel the same? This is important. We want anti-heal to feel the same, but for the person that gets hit by the anti-healing, they should have an opportunity where they can like respond. Like, this is something that's good. It's like, I do one thing, you respond, then I respond, then you respond, and whoever, like, you know, has the better response, they deserve to win that matchup, right? So in this case, currently, let's say, for example, if let's just take like Mauga in this case, right? If Mauga gets hit by anti-nade, it's pretty much GG's, right? He's a slow tank. He won't be able to get back into cover in time, or whatever the case might be, and his supports cannot bail him out for him to move into cover in time. So he's on a timer that, okay, I need to go. I need to get behind cover, otherwise I'm screwed if I get hit by the nade or by the sleep dart, right? Usually the combo is the sleep will come out of nowhere, passes through 5 people from the Ana's perspective, hits that Mauga, and there comes the sleep, and everybody just dogpiles on you. So it's not the best feeling in the world when you're playing tank. So how can we alleviate some of the frustration? I'm fine with Sleep Dart having a lot of power in it. However, the way we can alleviate the frustration of the anti-heal is, now, I will tell you what the developers think, and then I will tell you my solution. The developers think that the best thing to do, and they say that this is the simplest solution, is to decrease the duration of the anti-nade effect. But what they don't understand is that decreasing the duration doesn't do anything, because the initial few seconds, the first second that it comes up, the impact that that brings is strong enough for you to just completely fall apart, because you won't have enough time to respond or save that target. Even if anti-nade was just like the target cannot get healed for 2 seconds. The problem with that is that the target still cannot get healed. There's no way for that target to respond. So what is my suggestion? What do I think would be the right thing to do? I want Ana players to have a little bit of power in their kit, but not too much in the 5v5 setting, with the anti-nade at least. So the best solution, which we've all talked about, which I've mentioned here numerous times in a row, is that the anti-healing effect is basically a healing reduction effect. And what happens is when you reduce the healing, let's say by 90%, 80%, 60%, you can like balance around it as you implement it and go on with it over time. What it allows for is, now that tank that's kind of been hit by it, there's a window for them to respond. There's a window for the supports to try and help that guy still get out. Yes, he'll be under tremendous pressure that, oh crap, like I'm not getting that much heals, I'm getting melted progressively, right? But in this case, let's say if it's Mauga or Roadhog, they can still use respective abilities that can bail them out. Mauga can press his E, and then his healing, you know, effect and from the cardiac arrest will come up, and you know, he'll be able to kind of get himself through that situation. Or Roadhog will actually be able to take a breather, and also, like, you know, while he'll get healed from the thing, it won't be that much, but it'll still help him top that up with the supports behind it. So you'll still, and then what you can do to kind of alleviate like the fact that the cooldown is so high, you can reduce the cooldown to, let's say, 8 seconds, maybe 9 seconds, kind of experiment depending on the percentage reduction, and then go from there. And the point is that you try this, you experiment with it, because we never use the experimental mode for these like drastic changes, and I still don't understand why. When we implement something like this and we try to change the identity a little bit, regardless of the name of the ability staying the same, and you know, it'll always be remembered for that. It will allow us to experiment to see how something might feel. And if it doesn't feel good, let's say it doesn't feel good for them and they're like, oh, the community doesn't understand that this is something that doesn't feel good. Yes, you're right. We don't understand. We don't understand that something like that doesn't feel good for the Ana player or the tank player or something like that. So how about this? How about you implement it in the experimental game mode that you locked away in the prisons of Azkaban or something, and allow us to actually explore how that would feel like, get community feedback. Because the thing is, this is my hot take. This is like my super big tinfoil hat theory, right? The reason they don't want to do experiments like this is it will end up proving their philosophy wrong and a community opinion right. And if you guys have kept up with Overwatch for even just a year or 2 years, they cannot handle that. They have the biggest egos when it comes to understanding that sometimes they may be wrong about some things, right? They definitely hit the nail. They definitely hit the ball out of the park, sorry, with some of the recent hero reworks. Hog is actually one of the top tanks. Sombra feels much better and much more fluid to play. I give them a thumbs up for that. I give credit where it's due. However, some of the things they don't fundamentally understand, and a lot of those problems that they don't understand is with the support role. And I've already spoken about why I think so. I'm not going to repeat that over here, but in case you're interested in knowing a little bit more than that, you can leave a comment that, can you talk to me more about why you think they don't want to take risks with the support role? I will link you to another video where I explain why that's the case. Be warned though, that video is a little bit more aggressive in its nature and the point that I try to convey, but it is a harsh reality that is the truth. And if you don't believe me, just visit the forums and you will see it for yourself. Anyways, everybody, that's going to be it for this video. I just kind of wanted to talk about the state of anti-heal and why I think the developers' approach towards it is wrong, and why we should try to implement healing reduction or damage reduction abilities. Immortality field could be reworked into something like that too. And it's just, again, something worth experimenting about. Why don't we try? We will never know if it's good or bad unless we try. Now, with that being said, if you guys want to support me for free, all you have to do is hit like and subscribe. Helps me with the algorithm, helps the channel get around. If you want to support me financially, I would gladly appreciate it. You can do so with Super Chat down below. See you in the next video.